It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I have a dream. One day, this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say, but it can never forget what they did.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome to Eccentric Earth, the podcast where I, your host Amy Walker, delve into stories from across history with a guest who has no idea what the topic's going to be. And joining me for this episode is Chris Haigh.
Hi.
Welcome back, and it means something more to us this time.
Okay, yeah, let's just. Okay, so first of all, it's been a while since I've been on the show, not for any particular reason, but taking a break. And it also means, because this is the second time we've tried recording this, about 20 minutes ago, we were doing the introductions, and then my laptop decided to go, nah, I'm just going to mess with you. And I had to basically restart it, and it was the whole thing. And we were in the middle of making a joke, because not the last time, but the time before that, I basically had a long gap, and that is because Amy turned my voice into a rap song.
I'm pretty sure you were the one who came up with that idea.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. No, I never said Amy came up with the idea of the rap song. I said, you turned my voice into a rap song. And I didn't even realise until I was recording with the thing with someone else. They went, you realise there's a whole other 25-minute chunk cut out that's like a bonus episode? And I went, really? And I just looked it up and I went, oh yeah, this is literally you and I not talking about anything historical. It was just us discussing like Scarlett Johansson, the problematic fave, and kind of all that kind of thing. So I was like, fair enough.
When you think you're done with the show, there's something else out there.
I'm like, I was one episode away from retiring. They dragged me back in. No, yeah. I mean, to be fair,
this is your Creed show.
This is my Creed. This is my Lethal Weapon. I don't know. I haven't seen those films in years. It's one of those where it's like, I was 6 months away from retirement, or I was 3 days away from retirement, and they dragged me back in, and it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh no, does that mean I'm? Oh, well, I'm the crazy anti-Semite in that scenario, then, aren't I?
Oh, I did not think that analogy through. You're not Mel Gibson, you're not Mel Gibson, you're not Mel Gibson. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. How ironic, though. Sorry, this is not how the show should start, but how ironic that the guy who played the character in the TV show turned out to be a bit of a psycho as well.
Maybe it's just you have to cast a psycho to play Riggs.
Maybe, and then they were just like, yeah, we're just going to shoot him. Let's just fucking kill him off. And I was like, oh, work, okay. You do you. Yeah, but no, I'm intrigued for this episode because Amy has very explicitly said there's nothing traumatic in it. Which when I
didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
No, there's one sad moment.
Like
there's a few sad moments. It's a kick-ass episode.
That I'm fine with. She said, it ties into a lot of your first one, which was Elizabeth Fry, who is a badass.
I just got a lot of Fry vibes when I was researching this, and it's got me very excited to record this one.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited, but I was describing it to my dad, and he went, so what is it recording tonight? I went, well, okay, so it's a history podcast, but it's like a surprise. And he went, what do you mean surprise? I went, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. And he went, so your daily life? And I went, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, no, I'm very intrigued, and I can't wait to add someone to like. Okay, this is just a shout out to there's a YouTube channel called Movie Bitches, which I'm obsessed with, and it's basically a gay guy and a straight woman discuss films, and it's all very camp and very, very funny, and just they love watching like shit movies and all that sort of thing. But they have I completely lost where I was talking about then. Oh no, that was it. Yeah, they have a concept known as "Can I swear?" How hard can I swear on this?
Remember that rap we were talking about? You said "cunt" like 20 times in that, so
fabulous.
It's all good.
That's the word. Okay, so they have a concept called "Fabulous Cunt Island," and it's basically lots of kind of awesome, badass women, and they just all live on it. So like Judi Dench is on there, and like, you know, all these various like, oh, she's cool, she's on it, she's cool, she's on it, she's cool, she's on it, whatever. Like I think Laverne Cox is on there. I think like just awesome women. And I was just thinking like Elizabeth Fry's on there in my head. So I can't wait to add someone to my mental roster, or like my Leslie Knope-esque wall of inspiration.
Wow, now the pressure's on for me to not let you down.
And I'll be intrigued. It might be someone I've heard of.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope I can give you someone new.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I am very much, you know, all for it, but at least we're avoiding the kind of the true crime stuff. Because I'm such a weirdo for that I might have been like, oh my god, yes, those 4 people died. I know it.
Well, we had a few dark ones in a row, not just true crime, but it was like there was the guy who invented lobotomy, there was the Beast of Jersey, and then your one with the Villisca axe murders. I need to give people some light stuff for a while, so I've been doing some kick-ass inspirational people.
Yeah, I mean, it is December as we're recording it, so it's just like, maybe you know, season of goodwill, no matter what your denomination. Just like,
I have no goodwill for anyone.
Oh my god, I really want that to be like your Instagram tag now. Amy Walker, I have no goodwill for anyone. Either that, or you just do a clip of it, and that's just your opening now for the Christmas special. So it's just like, I have no goodwill for anyone. You think this is a season of goodwill? Blah. Anyway, as happens when you get me on a show, we've gone off topic.
To be fair, we hadn't started the topic yet, so it's a good start. It's a good start.
I know,
Promising.
I know, but I recorded those 2 Fringe episodes with Andrew Brooker, who is ace. We've not spent that much time together. It was supposed to be kind of an hour 30, and we were talking for 3 hours because I just wouldn't shut up.
God. Right, so we'll try and avoid the 3 hours, so let's delve in so we can get started.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or BritpodScene on Twitter to find out more.
Mary Anning was born on the 21st of May, 1799, in the British coastal town of Lyme Regis. Her father, Richard Anning, was a cabinet maker who supplemented his income by mining the coastal cliffside fossil beds near the town and selling his finds to tourists. He married Mary Moore on the 8th of August, 1793, and the young couple moved to Lyme, as Lyme Regis was known at the time, and lived in a house built on the town's bridge. Some historians have reported that the family lived so near to the coast that storms swept along the cliffs and flooded the Annings' home, and that on one occasion they had to crawl out of an upstairs window to avoid being drowned. Richard and Mary had 10 children together. The first was named Mary, who was born in 1794.
They really weren't inventive with the names, were they? Like they'll have had 7 daughters, all called Mary, and it's just like, Mary, which one? Oh fuck, Mary, the eldest, second eldest, third eldest, you know, like I get it. Names maybe weren't that inventive in the whatever. I can't remember. You said 1899, 1789,
1799, yeah.
1799. You know, so they couldn't go around saying like, you know, Courtney, Chelsea, and Cleo. They can't be going around like calling them that. But you know. I okay, this is just a personal thing. I don't like it when parents name children after themselves. I think but you know, if you've done that, that's absolutely fine. I just think it's a bit weird because it's almost a bit like you are putting a lot of expectation and personality onto this person who is maybe 2 days old. You know, it's a bit like, because my dad's called Steve. If I'd been called Steve Jr., I'd have been like, fuck, I can't live up to this. And nor do I particularly want to. My dad and I are very different people, and thank God for it. Not in a mean way. We're just different. We're just, yeah. So yeah, okay. So there's a Molly, but her real name's Mary, and she named her daughter Mary. And no doubt she'll name her other 17 children Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm going to have multiple Marys.
A basket. It's like that John Green thing. Like it's got that called an abundance of Catherines or something. It's just going to be like a household full of Marys.
So Mary was followed by another girl who died soon after childbirth, a brother Joseph in 1796, and another brother in 1798 who died a few days later. See, this is why they named kids the same name, because that way you're guaranteed to have at least one of them with that name survive.
Well, there was that... No, sorry, it's just there was that thing, which I don't know if it's true, but I read a thing saying they didn't used to name kids for the first couple of years.
Yeah,
because the infant mortality rate was like, yeah. So it was just like, oh look, it's the baby. You're going to name anything? Well, we'll see if it works out.
Yeah, let's not get too attached to it yet and name it.
Yeah, just be like, happy third birthday. What did you get? A name. Fabulous. At least you get time then to actually kind of match it to the personality.
Yeah.
There's like
that's a good point.
Yeah, well, there's been a bit of a trend of like girls being called, for example, Lola, which is a very nice name, but it comes from the Spanish Dolores, which means sorrow or misery, and I'm like, cool. Yeah. I'm someone who just likes learning like the meanings of stuff, so I'm like, cool. Maybe don't call it. Do you know what we named you? Fucking abject misery. Have fun with that, kid. Mind you, then this kind of the risk being like the Seven Dwarves, which I've always wondered, are they their real names or they're just their nicknames? Like, were they born happy, sleepy, grumpy, dopey, bashful, or doc? Or, and I'm really impressed I managed to remember that many, or were they nicknames, or were they named that? It's like, right, you've got to grow into this personality now.
It's a bit of a nature-nurture thing.
Yeah. Or
were they naturally like that, or were they shaped by their names?
Well, exactly. Is it something where it's just like, oh yes, we named him Happy because he had a happy temperament, or Grumpy the Dessert, or that sort of thing, or are the nicknames? Or is it a case of what my dad calls me missing the entire point and that he's a kid's film? Which, to be honest, dear listener, is not beyond the realm of possibility.
In December 1798, Mary, who was then 4 years old, died after her clothes caught fire while she was adding wood to the fire.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this is a bit awful. The incident was reported in the Bath Chronicle on the 27th of December and said, a child, 4 years of age, of Mr. R. Anning, a cabinet maker of Lyme, was left by the mother for about 5 minutes in a room where there was some shavings. The girl's clothes caught fire and she was so dreadfully burnt as to cause her death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was a bit bad.
Fair enough. Okay. I mean, it's horrible, but okay.
So when another daughter was born 5 months later, she was named Mary after her dead sister.
Oh, yeah. Nope.
And this is the Mary of our story.
Oh, okay. It's almost like it's like a trick, really. It's like in Smallville where they had, it's Jimmy Olsen, and then they killed him, and they went, oh no, he's named after his cousin, Jamie Olsen, and you're just like, oh, okay. Mind you, I definitely read a book about this, and the girl was called, it's not Rebecca Daphne du Maurier Rebecca, but the girl was called Rebecca after her, because she was adopted and she was named after the parents' biological daughter who died in a drowning accident. And I remember thinking, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
And they made her wear the clothes, and it's all a bit, bit vertigo, and it was weird. It was a wild ride of a book. But yeah, no, just that whole thing. It's just like, we're gonna, not even name you after it's a dead relative, I guess. But yeah, we're gonna name you after your dead sister. Right. Okay.
Yeah. You're the rebound child.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of puts the naming a child after the parent into perspective, really, doesn't it? It's like, oh, well, at least we're naming after someone living. Nope, we're going to name you after your own dead sibling. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah.
More children were born after Mary, but none of them survived beyond a few years of age, and only Mary and Joseph lived to adulthood. So out of the 10 children, 2 survived.
Oh, no.
Strangely enough, During this sort of period, around the 19th century, around half of the children born in Britain died before the age of 5.
Oh, God.
So this family was unusually high for it being 80%, but yeah, it was like 50-50 whether or not your kid was going to make it, really.
Lovely.
Yeah. Good old olden days. It was horrible.
Yeah. Oh, we really like romanticising the past. Really? Do you like thinking about cholera and death? Lovely.
On the 19th of August, 1800, she was being held by a neighbour, Elizabeth Haskins, who was standing with 2 other women under an elm tree, watching an equestrian show being put on by a travelling company of horsemen. With little warning, lightning hit the tree they were standing under and killed all 3 women.
Oh my God.
Onlookers rushed the baby Mary home, where she was revived in a bath of hot water. A local doctor declared her survival miraculous. Yeah. No
I don't know why I'm laughing. 3 women died.
Yeah.
I'm just like, ha ha ha, what the fuck?
Well, it's 200 years later. It's like, are we allowed to joke about it yet?
Just like, too soon.
No, that's crazy, though.
That is mad. I mean, I suppose maybe because she was short, or she wasn't. Oh my God, that's weird.
Her family said that she had been a sickly baby before the event, but afterwards she seemed to blossom. So the lightning made her stronger.
Is this the origin of a superhero? Is this the origin of a superhero, Amy?
This is the real life Flash, yes.
Because I'll be honest, the minute you said like lightning made her stronger, not only did Britney Spears' song "Stronger" come into my head, I've got the vision of her just like rising like that show Black Lightning, but I'm imagining this girl is white for some reason, and just like, I have the power of electricity. She's Storm.
That would make this story quite cool, but I think she's cooler without the powers because she does some badass things. But unfortunately, no powers.
None of my historical figures ever get super. I just want one thing where they were like, just so you know, Marilyn Monroe could talk to the dead, and I'm like, Audrey Hepburn could bring people back from the dead, and I'm like, of course she could. Mary Seacombe could like control the tides or something. I know. Can you tell that I have given a little bit too much thought into this?
Yeah.
I think
I've stumbled across something a bit disturbing here.
It's not. It's very wholesome. How dare you? It's which historical figure would match which superhero power and why. But yeah, so she survived, stuck in a hot bath, and apparently the lightning made her, I don't know, better.
For years, members of the local community would claim that her curiosity, intelligence, and lively personality was a result of being struck by lightning. Mary's education was extremely limited, however she was able to attend Sunday school where she learnt to read and write. By the late 18th century, Lyme Regis had become a popular seaside resort, especially after 1792, when the outbreak of the French Revolutionary Wars made travel to the European mainland dangerous for the English gentry. This increased numbers of wealthy and middle-class tourists holidaying there instead. Even before Mary's time, locals supplemented their income by selling what were called curios to visitors. These were fossils with colourful names such as snake stones, devil's fingers, and vertebraries. They would be sometimes attributed medical and mystical properties. These were in fact fossils, which included ammonites, belemnites, and vertebrae.
Ah.
I didn't realise this until researching this. Lyme Regis is the Jurassic Coast.
No. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so lots of fossils are along there.
Yeah.
Fossil collecting was very popular in the late 18th and early 19th centuries as a hobby, but gradually transformed into a science as the importance of fossils to geology and biology became known. The source of most of the fossils in England were the coastal cliffs around Lyme Regis, which were part of a geological formation known as the Blue Lias. This consists of alternating layers of limestone and shale laid down as sediment on a shallow seabed early in the Jurassic period, around 210 to 195 million years ago, and to this day remains one of the richest fossil locations in Britain. However, the cliffs could be dangerously unstable, especially in winter when rain caused landslides, and it was during these winter months that collectors were drawn to the cliffs because the landslides often exposed new fossils. Richard Anning often took Mary and Joseph on fossil hunting expeditions to make more money for the family, and they offered their discoveries for sale to tourists on a table outside their home. This was a difficult time for England's poor. The French Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars that followed caused food shortages. The price of wheat almost tripled between 1792 and 1812, but wages for the working class remained almost unchanged. In Dorset, the rising price of bread caused political unrest and even riots. And at one point, Richard Anning was involved in organising a protest against food shortages. In addition to this, the family's status as religious dissenters for not following the Church of England attracted discrimination. Because they were classed as dissenters, they were not allowed into universities or the army and were excluded by law from several professions. Her father had been suffering from tuberculosis and injuries he suffered from a cliff fall when he died in November 1810, aged just 44.
Oh my god. Well,
Not bad age.
I was going to say, I was trying to work out what kind of the average. I'm like, fine, I guess.
I can have a look what the average age was then.
Yeah, ish.
Jesus.
How?
Around 40. That's for your average working class poor person.
Yeah.
Is like 35 to 45. So he did all right.
Yeah, he did. Better than most.
Better than 8 of his kids.
Oh.
Too soon.
Do you know what I was thinking? 200 years, it's not too soon, and yet somehow, Amy, that man too soon. Being like, hey, do you know you did better by your fucking kids? Yeah. It's fine.
Here, in the playback. If it seems too much, I'll just cut this whole part out.
Yeah, and then I'll put it on Twitter and be like, do you know what? Amy had a really tasteless child murder joke. It's like, it wasn't murder.
It wasn't murder. It was just death.
They got murdered by the Times.
Yeah.
It's just like, Mary 1 got murdered by the fact that she just didn't know that flames make stuff go up. So,
tell you what, if they'd had all been like Mary 2, that kid was struck by lightning. She was the shit.
I know, she was like the Daenerys of the family. She had one thing, all of a sudden became stronger. She's like, I got struck by lightning and didn't go on fire. 3 grown women got killed by it. Me, I'm strong as fuck. She's like Kanye West. She's like, me, I'm strong as hell. And everyone else is just like, you are just lucky. You win. I wonder if that's what made her like stronger, not like all jokes aside. I wonder if it was like the attention. And she was like, let's be right, she was one of however many, whatever pecking order she was in. So that might have kind of given her the impetus to be like, okay, all right, I've got a bit something to live up to now. Either that or it completely rewired her brain or something. But who knows?
After Richard's death, the family was left with significant debt and no savings, and it forced them to apply for parish relief. However, the family continued collecting and selling fossils together and set up a table of curiosities near a coach stop at the local inn. Before the father's death, her parents had been astute collectors together and had sold significant fossil finds. Their first well-known find was in 1811 when Mary was just 12. Joseph dug up a 4-foot ichthyosaur skull, and a few months later Mary found the rest of the skeleton. Henry Host Henley of Sandringham House in Norfolk paid the family about £23 for it, the equivalent of £1,070 today. He went on to sell this to William Bullock, a well-known collector who displayed it in London. Whilst in London, the fossil generated considerable interest, mainly because at the time most people in England still believed in the biblical account of creation, which implied that the Earth was only a few thousand years old.
Ah. It's like, logically I know that, but it's just weird of being like, oh wow, they didn't know about dinosaurs.
Yeah, they were completely, it was just not a thing they'd consider. There wouldn't be dinosaurs because why would God let things go extinct? He doesn't make flawed creatures. Of course they'd survive. There's no such thing as dinosaurs. The Earth's 4,000 years old. It was just fact to them.
Yeah. Oh. I mean,
And it was 200 years ago. You'd think they'd have figured it out by then, but it's shocking.
Well, I mean, we had the Renaissance a bit, but I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're listening to this and you're a creationist, then first of all, did you pick the wrong podcast? Sorry, that's mean. That's mean. I'm sure there's someone out there who's a creationist. But you know, that's fine. That's 1,000% your right to belief. Just don't start yelling at people in the street and saying it needs to be taught in schools. It's like, no, they can read about creationism on a pamphlet and they'll be fine.
Is it bad of me that in my shop, if we ever get donated like Bibles, I put them in the fiction section on the bookshelf?
I mean,
Am I just being an arsehole, or I don't know?
It depends. It depends. It depends. If you're doing it as like some kind of atheist, agnostic kind of fuck you, then fine, do it. As long as you're not actually doing it. Like I said, I'm just going to do it to particularly annoy this one subgroup of people. In which case, it's like maybe a bit. But listen, if you believe the Bible is literally the word of God, which is your right, I think you maybe need some perspective, given that God is an ephemeral being and therefore can't use a pen. Some of them genuinely do. I watched this, again, tangent, but I watched a thing years ago, which was a woman who said, no, he literally wrote the Bible. He came down from heaven and physically wrote it. And I went, did he? Because they're the same kind of people who, in paintings, they insist that Jesus was white. From the Middle East, a white man in the Middle East. Yeah, he and every other good character in the Bible, somehow, they are the palest of pale, being Middle Eastern Jews. Huh.
And, of course, Middle Eastern Jews of 2,000 years ago, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were perfectly normal names for that part of the world.
Absolutely. And the fact that he wrote it in English.
Yeah.
I think he's absolutely incredible. So, power to him, the divine.
My subscribers are going down right now, aren't they?
No, listen, it's believe what you're going to believe. If you have faith, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's okay as well. But
have faith, but kind of accept that part of your faith is this book was written by people, so some of it is probably made up.
Yeah. I mean,
take it with a pinch of salt.
Take it with a pinch of salt and take it in the context of it was, a percentage of it might be true. However big the percentage is depends on your thing. But it was written by people who lived in their own context and everything, and who, like people writing books, probably used analogies and kind of allegories and all that sort of thing. So maybe don't take it as a literal translation. And also realize that there's more important things in the world to be worrying about, and there's stuff that we all share and have commonality with each other, regardless of whether or not you have faith and what faith that is, or if you don't have faith at all. It's all absolutely fine. Impeach Trump. I know I say that once every episode on any show I'm in now. I'm just like, well, the point of it is, first of all, impeach Trump. Secondly, and then I get to the actual point, because eventually, if I speak it into the universe, it's going to happen. Either that, or he's going to. I don't know. No, I made a joke about him getting assassinated, and then I just thought I genuinely had to ask them to edit it out in case someone listened to it. I was like, "Are you planning to kill Trump?" And I'm like, "No. I mean, he's awful, but like."
You'd be on a watch list.
Well, that, and I'm also a crap shot. It's not the fact that it's like, what is it? It's also the logistics of it. I'm awful. It's like, even if the intent were there, and I can't kill anyone, even if the intent were there, the body has bad eyesight, and. Having learned this from the odd time that I've used an air rifle in safe conditions and everything, don't worry, I'm just crap. So the chance of me pulling off a political assassination is like, Donald Trump having a considerate word to say about anyone. It's all good.
After being on display in London for a while, the fossil was sold again, this time for £45 and 5 shillings, an auction, which is about the equivalent of £2,100. the fossil was listed as crocodile in fossil form in the British Museum. So even the museums were still, so like, it's not a dinosaur, it's something we're familiar with, it's going to have to be a crocodile.
I mean, technically, I guess. Crocodiles are technically dinosaurs. Same with, like, birds. So, yeah, I mean, birds are technically dinosaurs, so...
Yeah. Just go watch chickens run around a garden. It's exactly like the raptors in Jurassic Park.
I mean, I was thinking more kind of, oh my god, I can't think of a single flying dinosaur now. My mum is genuinely, she loves the Jurassic Park World films. And so she has them on at least like twice a month. And yet I can't remember what. Pterodon? Is that one?
Mm-hmm.
Pterodactyl, that's it. You know, looking at them and seeing how they're effectively kind of a precursor to modern kind of avids and all that sort of thing. So it's like, oh, cool. But yeah, I can easily see why in like turn of the century, 19th century England, they were like, cool, this is a lizard. Yeah. This is a crocodile. Definitely. Like, rather than being like, hi, this is something that we have no idea what the fuck it is. You know, I don't know why they couldn't reconcile that with the church. If, mind you, I suppose it's Genesis, isn't it? It's not like, and then God created the things that were much bigger than humans, but then which all mysteriously died around about the same time.
Well, one theory that they would put across was that all these fossilized animals that they'd never seen before were around at the start of the Bible and lived alongside man, but were killed in the flood with Noah. They were the animals that didn't get to go on the ark, which is why they're all wiped out.
I'm sad now. Do you know why? Have you seen the new Jurassic World?
No.
No. Okay. There's a moment.
No spoilers.
Okay. No. It's there's a moment in it which is so sad. It's just weird. I wasn't expecting this. It was so sad that I almost cried in the cinema. I genuinely I was like, I don't know what I was close. I don't actually cry a lot, but I come near quite a lot, and that got me. And then I had just this like bunch of sad dinosaurs holding hands, like, you know, that bit in Titanic. But there's like the old couple on the bed as the wall. Just like a couple of dinosaurs going like, it's all right. Oh, God. Oh, I'm a mess. It's Christmas. It stirs up emotions in everyone. Right. So, family business, selling stuff. Cool.
Mary's mother initially ran the business after Richard's death, but it's unclear how much of the actual fossil collecting she did. As late as 1821, she wrote to the British Museum to request payment for a specimen. Joseph's time was increasingly taken up by his apprenticeship to an upholsterer, but he remained active in the fossil business until at least 1825. By that time, Mary had assumed the leading role in the business.
Oh, so she's like, well, I suppose a bit like a female Alan Grant, or like
she's
but he didn't sell
lady
anything.
Fossil hunter.
Yeah, like Alan Grant meets Lara Croft, but in the 1800s.
Well, at the time, you know, museums would send people out to look for stuff, but a lot of it, they just bought stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, I guess, like a contractor, if she would go and sell them to museums or private collectors.
Oh, like the baddies in the beginning of the third Indiana Jones film.
Yes.
Yeah, where they're trying to like the big cross, and they're like, this belongs to, you know, our highest thing, and then young Indy's like, it belongs in the museum.
Yes, Mary Anning is the guy who gives Indy his hat. You figured it out.
Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, I watch a lot of Ancient Aliens, and so somehow I'm like, I can believe that.
Lieutenant Colonel Thomas James Birch, a wealthy collector from Lincolnshire, was one of the family's regular customers, and he bought several specimens from them. In 1820, he became disturbed by the family's poverty. Having made no major discoveries for a year, they were at the point of having to sell their furniture in order to pay rent. Birch made the decision to auction the fossils he'd bought from them and donate the money to the family. He wrote to the paleontologist Gideon Mantell to say that the sale was for the benefit of the poor woman and her son and daughter at Lyme, who have in truth found almost all the fine things which have been submitted to scientific investigation. I may never again possess what I am about to part with, yet in doing it I shall have the satisfaction of knowing that the money will be well applied. The auction was held in London in May 1820 and raised £400 for the family, the equivalent of 18.6 thousand.
Wow. That's not
Yep.
bad.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
However, historical records do not show how much of this was given to the Annings, but it does seem to place the family on a steadier financial footing, and they were able to survive financially for a short while. Mary continued to support herself selling fossils. Her primary stock in trade consisted of invertebrate fossils such as ammonites and belemnite shells, which were common in the area and sold for a few shillings. Vertebrate fossils such as ichthyosaur skeletons sold for more, but were much rarer. Collecting the fossils was dangerous winter work, and in an 1823 article in the Bristol Mirror, it wrote about her saying, "This persevering female has for years gone daily in search of fossil remains of importance at every tide, for many mile under the hanging cliffs at Lyme, whose fallen masses are her immediate object, as they alone contain these valuable relics of a former world, which must be snatched at the moment of their fall, at the continual risk of being crushed by the half-suspended fragments where they leave behind, or be left to be destroyed by the returning tide. To her exertions we owe nearly all the fine specimens of ichthyosaur of the great collections."
Aw. I mean, that's nice. It's also kind of patronising, but it's nice.
Yeah, she's getting a credit at least. It's like, yeah, she's the one finding them.
It's matter of fact, this persevering female, it's almost a bit like, well, this little lady done found some dinosaur
Yeah.
bones. And it's just like, okay. Yeah. It's nice. I'd rather say that than just like, clearly it was a guy who did it. Like that whole thing about, Branwell Bronte, when he's like, he clearly wrote all of his sister's book. And you're just like, get in the bin. Get in the bin with that opinion. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this next part isn't as nice. This is one of the, oh no, parts of the story. But it will get better.
Okay.
In October 1833, Mary barely avoided being killed by a landslide whilst collecting fossils. While she survived the incident, her black and white terrier called Trey, which was her constant companion, was killed.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm sorry, we've got a doggy death.
Oh, God damn it, Amy.
I'm sorry. I didn't do it.
I don't know who I have to report you to. For bringing me, you can't do who does the dog die for podcasts. For historical things, just be like, I'm sorry. I know the dog, if he had survived, would have been long dead by now, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Oh, his name was Trey. Like the tray you use. Oh, well.
Mary wrote to a friend, Charlotte Murchison, in November that year to say, "Perhaps you will laugh when I say the death of my old faithful dog has quite upset me. The cliff that fell upon him and killed him in a moment before my eyes and close to my feet, it was but a moment between me and the same fate." So it literally landed right next to her. So very lucky escape, and poor Trey.
Poor Trey. I mean, don't be wrong. I mean, I'm glad she survived, but it's like, why did the dog have to die? It's like there's a film I watched ages ago, and I think it's called Tracks, and Mia Wasikowska's in it. And Adam Driver's in it. It's basically about a true story of a woman who she was unemployed and a bit listless, and so she decided to trek from one end of Australia to the other. And she has a dog with her, and the dog makes it 3/4 of the way through the film before it gets attacked and gets rabies, and so she has to put it down. And I swear to God, that was when I cried, because the rest of the film is great. It's really interesting. It's fantastic. And I'm like, if you'd have just lied to me and not killed the dog,
Yeah.
I'd have been because she ends up taking camels. She uses camels to travel over. So the camel is it camels? No, that's camels, horses, something. She ends up taking some up to like travel with. I swear it's a camel, but who knows? It's been 4 years since I've seen this film. A lot's happened.
It's either a camel or a dodgy horse. So
see, but it's a horse that needs to see a chiropractor. But no, and it got me. Then I was like, oh, Trey. I can't.
Don't worry, it will get better from there.
I know, but
there's no more doggy day.
I know, but I can't watch like the super there. I'm more upset about the dog dying than I am the rest of those children. How fucked up's that? I'm more like, listen, I'm more upset the dog died than the fact that you described how a 4-year-old went up in flames. I'm more upset that the dog died in like a moment, so instantly, than the fact that the child went up like kindling. Oh
dear.
Oh, I want to be with my dog now. It's fine. He's asleep. He's fine.
Just don't take him to any cliffs.
No, that's a fair certainty now. if there ever was one, like, I'm just gonna keep him away from all cliff stuff.
As Mary continued to make important finds, her reputation grew. On the 10th of December 1823, she found the first complete plesiosaur, and in 1828, the first British example of a pterosaur, which was called a flying dragon when displayed at the British Museum.
Fair enough. Okay. Flying dragon, bring it.
Now, I'm going to have a great time trying to pronounce this. These discoveries were followed by a squalarager fish in 1829. Squalarager?
Spell it?
Squaloraja.
Squalarager. Like, you know, like
it's not easy, is it?
It's squalor and then like azure. Squalarager. Squalarager? We'll roll with it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
They're all dead. They're all dead now. They're not going to take offence.
This is where the one paleontologist listener I've got has just thrown his phone at the wall.
That one paleontologist is going to just put reviews over the thing. Clearly, it's pronounced. Someone should have done the research. And it's just like, oh, calm down. There's not going to be like a squalarager, rights group or anything. They're fucking dead.
Despite her limited education, she read as much of the scientific literature at the time that she could, and often hand-copied papers borrowed from others. Paleontologist Christopher McGowan examined a copy she made of an 1824 paper on marine reptile fossils and noted that the copy included several pages of her detailed technical illustrations that he said was hard-pressed to tell apart from the original. Very talented woman.
Damn straight.
Mary also dissected modern animals, including both fish and cuttlefish, to gain a better understanding of the anatomy of some of the fossils which she was working with. Lady Harriet Sylvester, the widow of the former Recorder of the City of London, visited Lyme in 1824 and described Mary in her diary. The extraordinary thing in this young woman is that she has made herself so thoroughly acquainted with the science that the moment she finds any bones, she knows to what tribe they belong. She fixes the bones to a frame with cement and then makes drawings and has them engraved. It is certainly a wonderful instance of divine favour that this poor ignorant girl should be so blessed, for by reading and application she has arrived to that degree of knowledge as to be in the habit of writing and talking with professors and other clever men on the subject, and they all acknowledge that she understands more of the science than anyone else in this kingdom.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so she's basically saying, this girl knows more than the professors and the gentlemen scholars, and
that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. It's like, listen, she knows her shit.
Basically,
she knows her shit better than anyone else in the country. So, like, don't be a dick. Even though I have never heard of her before, so.
Because that's the thing at this time as well, there weren't paleontologists.
No,
this was not. Gentlemen collectors. It was people who did science as a hobby. So that's their hobby, but this is her life, this is her living, so she knows so much more than them.
Yeah? Oh, wow.
In 1826, at the age of 27, Mary managed to save enough money to purchase a home with a glass storefront window for her shop, which she named Anning's Fossil Depot. The business had become important enough that the move was covered in the local paper, which noticed that the shop had a fine ichthyosaur skeleton on display. Many geologists and fossil collectors from Europe and America visited Mary in Lyme, including the geologist George William Feverson. Oh, good God. I started that word without reading the whole thing. Feverstoner.
Sorry, that was just funny. It was like, Featherstone, where the fuck is this going?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just going to send you his name in the Skype chat so you can see why I started it and then went, oh, good God. Feverstoner, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah, Featherstoner or Featherstone Hay or... Yeah.
I started as like, oh, yeah, Feather. Oh, what the hell?
Like, Featherstone. Or, hey. And it's just like, nah, gonna throw them together. Just...
So, George, we'll call him, purchased fossils from her for the newly opened New York Lyceum of Natural History, which I believe, I'm going to check this, actually became the Museum of Natural History. Where is my Internet Explorer? Oh, I closed it, that's why I can't search for it.
I've been to the Natural History Museum in New York. It is ace.
Oh, no, the Lyceum actually became the New York Academy of Sciences.
Ooh.
So she supplied them with the fossils.
That is,
which is
awesome.
Yeah. I told you this woman was going to be kick-ass.
I'm enjoying her. That sounds weird to say. I'm enjoying learning about her. I'm like, this is cool.
King Frederick Augustus II of Saxony visited her shop in 1844 and purchased an ichthyosaur skeleton for his extensive natural history collection. The king's physician and aide, Carl Gustav Carus, wrote in his journal, "We had alighted from the carriage and were proceeding on foot when we fell in with a shop in which the most remarkable petrifications and fossil remains. The head of an ichthyosaur, beautiful ammonites, etc., were exhibited in the window. We entered and found the small shop and adjoining chamber completely filled with fossil productions of the coast. I found in the shop a large slab of blackish clay in which a perfect ichthyosaur of at least 6 feet was embedded. This specimen would have been a great acquisition for many of the cabinets of natural history on the continent, and I considered the price demanded, £15 sterling, as very moderate." So now she's selling it to kings as well.
I mean, damn, okay.
Carus asked Annin to write her name and address in his pocketbook for further reference, and when she handed it back to him, she told him, "I'm well known throughout the whole of Europe." So, tooting her own horn now. It's a bit big-headed, but I like it.
Well, she puts the work in, and it is a little braggy, but I don't think anyone can begrudge her it.
No.
Not at this stage, not when she's getting like, she literally knows better than anyone else in the UK. So maybe, let her have this one. It's cool.
As time progressed, Mary's confidence in her knowledge grew, and in 1839 she wrote to the Magazine of Natural History to question a claim made in an article. The article said that a recently discovered fossil of the prehistoric shark Hybodus represented a new genus. She said that this was an error since she had discovered the existence of fossil sharks with both straight and hooked teeth many years before. So she's correcting the Natural History magazine.
That is the 19th century equivalent of talk shit. Yeah.
I like it. It's like, oh, this thing clearly exists. It's like, no, I've got the evidence. Found it years ago. Shut up.
Yeah. Oh no, I stand corrected. It's the 19th century version of when where women report saying like, oh well, I was studying the thing, we're in a t-shirt for say, Wonder Woman or whatever, and a guy comes up and says, oh, I bet you don't even know who she is, and she's like, yeah, I write for the comic. Or a guy tries to mansplain on Twitter to someone being like, oh well, that's not actually how it works. It's just like, I have a PhD in it, so maybe I do.
I follow Gail Simone on Twitter, and she said that someone tried to explain Deadpool to her, and she was like, dude, I'm credited in the movie, shut up.
Oh, God, I love Gail Simone. She's
Yeah.
fab.
The extract from this letter that the magazine printed is the only writing that Mary published in scientific literature during her lifetime, because women weren't allowed to.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, no, it's just awful, isn't it? Oh, well. Well, at least it's changed that women aren't at all oppressed for I mean, I know I'm making a joke out of it, but then it's also just like a genuine note of, fuck.
As a woman, Mary was an outsider in the scientific community. At the time in Britain, women were not allowed to vote, hold public office, or attend university.
Oh, fuck that. Sorry, continue.
The newly formed but increasingly influential Geological Society of London did not allow women to become members or even attend meetings as guests. Although Mary knew more about fossils and geology than many of the wealthy fossilists whom she sold it to, it was always the gentlemen geologists who published the scientific descriptions of the specimens she found, and often neglecting to mention her name. So, taking credit for her discoveries. Good old men.
Yep. Men! We're still trash.
Mary, unsurprisingly, became resentful of this. Anna Pinney, a young woman who sometimes accompanied Mary while she collected fossils, wrote, "She says the world has used her ill. These men of learning have sucked her brains and made a great deal of publishing works, of which she furnished the contents, while she derived none of the advantages." Mary's experiences were a part of a larger pattern of ignoring the contributions of working-class people in the early 19th century scientific literature. Fossils would often be found by quarrymen, construction workers, or road workers who would sell it to wealthy collectors. It was them who were later credited in the find of scientific interest. So, rich white people screwing everyone over.
Oh.
Glad to see times have changed.
I'm glad. Do you know what? I'm really glad it was an isolated incident. Oh,
yeah.
can you imagine what it would have been like if rich, straight white people had been enforcing this code for years? Oh.
Along with purchasing specimens, many geologists visited her to collect fossils or discuss anatomy and classification. Henry de Lebec and Mary became friends as teenagers following his move to Lyme, and he and Mary, and sometimes Mary's brother Joseph, went fossil hunting together quite often. De Lebec and Mary kept in touch as he became one of Britain's leading geologists. William Buckland, who lectured in geology at the University of Oxford, often visited Lyme on his Christmas holidays and was frequently seen hunting for fossils with Mary. It was to him she made what would prove to be the scientifically important suggestion that the strange conical objects known as bezoar stones were really the fossilized feces of ichthyosaurs or plesiosaurs.
Ah, like in Harry Potter. They use bezoar stones as like, oh, you've got to put one in the mouth or put one in a thing. And I'm just like, so it's ichthyosaurus shit.
Yeah, it's dino poop.
Dino poop.
Buckland would go on to name the objects coprolites, and in 1839 Buckland, Connie Bear, and Richard Owen visited Lyme together so that Mary could lead them all on fossil collecting excursions. Mary also assisted Thomas Hawkins with his effort to collect ichthyosaur fossils at Lyme in the 1830s. She was aware that he liked to enhance fossils he collected. She wrote, "He is such an enthusiast that he makes things as he imagines them ought to be, and not as they really are." A few years later, there was a public scandal when it was discovered that Hawkins had inserted fake bones to make some of the ichthyosaur skeletons seem more complete. He later sold these to the British Museum collection without the appraisers knowing about the additions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Choices.
Bit of a swindler. The Swiss paleontologist Louis Agassiz visited Lyme Regis in 1834 and worked with Mary to obtain and study fish fossils found in the region. He was so impressed by her and her friend Elizabeth Philpott that he wrote in his journal, "Miss Philpott and Mary Anning have been able to show me with utter certainty which are the ichthyoduralites, dorsal fins of sharks that correspond to different types." He went on to publicly thank both of them for their help in his book, Studies of Fossil Fish. Another leading British geologist, Roderick Murchison, did some of his first field work in southwest England, which included Lyme, accompanied by his wife, Charlotte. Murchison wrote that they decided Charlotte should stay behind in Lyme for a few weeks to become a good practical fossilist by working with the celebrated Mary Anning. Charlotte and Mary became lifelong friends and correspondents. Charlotte, who travelled widely and met with many prominent geologists through her work with her husband, helped Mary build her network of customers throughout Europe, and Mary stayed with them whenever she visited London.
This isn't appropriate. I immediately thought, oh my god, are they gay? They're not. There's no proof. But immediately they were like, oh, these two women train and become life. And I just thought, oh, make it gay.
Were you thinking this was going to go into a lesbian love story?
I kind of thought it was going to become one of those super unrequited, kind of, yeah, I don't know why. We're recording this fairly late at night, and I'm just like, oh, do you know what this needs? Make it gay. We've had it before with stories. It's just like, it's already quite gay. Make it gayer. Even gayer. No, anyway. So, yeah, cool. That's good.
Mary's many correspondents included Charles Lyell, who wrote to her to ask for her opinion on how the sea was affecting the coastal cliffs around Lyme, as well as Adam Sedgwick, who taught geology at the University of Cambridge, who numbered Charles Darwin among his students. So she's helping the guy who would go on to teach Darwin. That's kind of awesome.
That is, yeah.
If it wasn't for her, would Darwin have had that information fed down to him?
Probably not. And then that would have kind of informed his. But then, yeah, and then it's weird thinking about it, kind of like how many ways that your life and other people's lives touch yours. So like, oh, cool, this thing that you learned or this thing that you did, it wouldn't have been possible without this person deciding this or this person deciding that, and not having a an impact. So it's a nice way of kind of talking about how other people's lives can affect each other without even knowing about it. Because when she sold the thing to this Professor what's his name, who taught at Cambridge, she didn't know that he would go on to be that he had Charles Darwin in his class. She had no idea. So yeah, that's cool. You never know.
By 1830, because of difficult economic conditions in Britain that reduced the demand for fossils, coupled with long gaps in major finds, Mary was once again in financial difficulties. Her friend, the geologist Henry Delebecq, assisted her by commissioning George Scharf to make a lithograph print based on Delebecq's watercolour painting Duria Antiquor, portraying life in prehistoric Dorset that was largely based on fossils Mary had found. Delebecq sold copies of the print to his fellow geologists and other wealthy friends and donated the proceeds to Mary.
Okay, good friend.
Yeah, he didn't have to do that, but he's supporting his mate.
I like that. It's, more platonic male-female friendships. This is what I like to hear about. Because if they ever made a Hollywood version, it would be like, oh, he was in love with her his whole life, and I'm like, no, maybe they're just friends, and it's fine. Don't make it weird.
That's the thing. It's like, I don't know if Mary had any interest in relationships because we're quite far into her life and there has been nothing. It's just her work.
Well, maybe she just, maybe she was I think they used to call them blue stockings in the 20th century, which is someone who's, doesn't care much about kind of relationships or anything like that for whatever reason. Maybe she was asexual, maybe she was aromantic, maybe she just liked work more than anything else. Maybe that was maybe she was romantic, but she was romantic about kind of fossils and all that kind of thing.
I just like that she doesn't even have that, goes home to her husband at the end of the day kind of thing. It's like, no, she's doing this all herself. It's all her.
I'm gonna say, so she bought her own house and her own shop and everything, and it's like cool.
Yeah.
And that's not in the fact that or at least it hasn't yet mentioned any kind of like, oh well, if she doesn't marry off, she's never gonna be able to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, she's just out there doing her own shit and doing it really well, and in fact being the best in the UK, even though she's getting completely unfairly represented and people are taking credit for her work and all that kind of shit, but she's still doing it. So power to her. It's cool. And it's very different to like Elizabeth Fry, who did have a husband and her work was very much entirely just it was very different. But they both went out and did what they wanted to do, which is awesome.
Yeah, which is why I thought you'd like her, because of that.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're doing what you want to do and you're making some kind of positive impact, because I don't want it to be like, do you know who we're going to do? Myra Hindley. Why? Because she did out what she wanted to do. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. technically she does tick those boxes. But
That's what I mean. That's
no.
What I mean. That's why I'm like, third criteria, putting some good out into the world, and that kind of goes bye-bye, Myra, and just shuffles her off. But yeah, women going out there and kind of the time, doing what they want and kind of making a positive impact on the world and kind of the information, the awareness shared. So that's awesome.
In December 1830, Mary finally made another major find, a skeleton of a new type of plesiosaur, which she sold for £200, the equivalent of 9,300.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to get back on your feet.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It was around this time that she switched from attending the local Congregational church, where she had been baptised and in which she and her family had always been active members, to the Anglican church. The change was prompted in part by a decline in congregational attendance that began in 1828, when its popular pastor, John Gleed, a fellow fossil collector, left for the United States to campaign against slavery. He was replaced by a less likeable Ebenezer Smith. The greater social respectability of the established church, in which some of Mary's gentleman geologist customers were ordained clergy, was also a factor in this decision. Mary, who was devoutly religious, actively supported her new church as she did her old.
Yeah. I mean, that is quite cool that she was able to kind of marry her scientific beliefs and kind of practices and regimen and all that sort of thing with having a pretty strong faith. I respect that. That's pretty cool.
She suffered another serious financial setback in 1835 when she lost most of her life savings in a bad investment. So I found conflicting things about this. Some were saying that she was basically conned, but other people were saying that it was a legit investment, but the person she invested in died. And so, like, the whole thing fell apart and she was left with nothing.
I mean, that's the ultimate con. I went and died on you.
Yeah.
We'll see you get your money now.
So I'm not sure which one it is, but yeah, she's left with all of her savings wiped out.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, it's awful, but okay.
Concerned about her financial situation, her old friend William Buckland persuaded the British Association for the Advancement of Science and the British government to award her an annuity known as a civil list pension in return for her many contributions to the science of geology, and she was given annual pension of £25, which at the time is very unusual for, I say very unusual, women just didn't get that. So
yeah,
she was the first to receive anything like that. Oh god, what have I done? I've turned all my text red. Okay, it's back to normal.
You've got to leave that in.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Really serious? Really serious? Oh, fuck. It's the spirit of Mary Ann. Oh, bless her.
On the 9th of March, 1847, at the age of 47, Mary died from breast cancer.
Oh, no.
Her work had tailed off during the last few years of her life because of her illness, and as some of the townspeople misinterpreted the effects of increasing doses of laudanum she was taking for the pain. As such, there were many rumours that Mary had a drinking problem. Despite these rumours, the regard in which she was held by the geological community was shown in 1846, where, upon learning of her cancer diagnosis, the Geological Society raised money from its members to help with her expenses, and the council of the newly created Dorset County Museum made her an honorary member.
Oh, that's nice.
The community's rallying for her.
Oh, bless.
Mary was buried on the 15th of March in a churchyard of St. Michael's in the local parish church. Members of the Geological Society contributed to a stained glass window in her memory, unveiled in 1850. It depicts the 6 corporal acts of mercy: feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, clothing the naked, sheltering the homeless, and visiting the prisoners and the sick. The inscription on the window reads, "This window is sacred to the memory of Mary Anning of this parish, who died on the 9th of March AD 1847, and is erected by the vicar and some members of the Geological Society of London in commemoration of her usefulness in furthering the science of geology, as also of her benevolence of heart and integrity of life." The window still exists to this day.
Oh.
After her death, Henry de la Becque, president of the Geological Society, wrote a eulogy that he read to a meeting of the society and published in its quarterly transaction, the first given for a woman. These were honours normally only accorded to fellows of the society, which did not admit women until 1904. The eulogy read in part, "I cannot close this notice of our losses by death without adverting to that of one who, though not placed among even the easier classes of society, but one who had earned her daily bread by her labour, yet contributed by her talents and untiring researches in no small degree to our knowledge of the great Enaleosaurians and other forms of organic life entombed in the vicinity of Lyme Regis." Charles Dickens wrote an article about her life in 1865 in his literary magazine All the Year Round. It emphasised the difficulties she had overcome, especially the scepticism of her fellow townspeople. He ended the article with, "The carpenter's daughter has won a name for herself, and it has deserved to win it."
Oh, and it all comes full circle.
Yep.
Oh.
Charles Dickens, that's a hell of an accolade to have him write something about you.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Mary's discoveries became key pieces of evidence for the theory of extinction. George Cuvier had argued for the reality of extinction in the late 1790s based on his analysis of fossil animals, such as mammoths. Nevertheless, until the early 1820s, it was still believed by many scientifically literate people that just as new species did not appear, so existing ones did not become extinct, in part because they felt that extinction would imply God's creations had been imperfect. The bizarre nature of the fossils found by Mary, such as the plesiosaur, which was so unlike any known living creature, struck a major blow against this idea. The ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and pterosaurs she found, along with the first dinosaur fossils which were discovered by Gideon Mantell and William Buckland during the same period, showed that during previous eras the Earth was inhabited by creatures very different from those living today, and provided important support for other controversial suggestions, that there had been an age of reptiles, when reptiles rather than mammals had been the dominant form of life. These discoveries also played a key role in the development of a new discipline of geohistorical analysis within geology in the 1820s that sought to understand the history of Earth by using evidence from fossils. This discipline eventually came to be called paleontology. So she invented paleontology.
Yeah.
You've never heard of her, have you?
No. I mean, to be fair, I was nodding impressed and then I realised you can't see it. I was like, this is not a face-to-face conversation. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, it's like the whole thing where it's like, women invented all of your favourite things. Like, Mary Shelley created horror and... Oh my God, what's her name? She wrote... So it's Margaret Cavendish's The Blazing World.
Okay, I've never heard of them.
Huh. Yes. So it was written in 1666, and it's basically about a utopian world, and there's an empress in charge and all that sort of thing. But it's the first recorded example of science fiction. So technically, she is the mother of sci-fi, and Mary Shelley created kind of arguably modern horror. And now, Mary Anning created paleontology. And I know there's going to be like, oh, well, actually the first university in the world was founded by female scholars. So that's awesome too.
So without Mary, no Jurassic Park.
Yes, exactly. That's the message to take away. If Mary Anning hadn't been as awesome, Jurassic Park would have been either not existed or not been as good.
This next bit might blow you away as well because, well, it's just insane. Throughout the 20th century, a number of writers saw Mary's life as inspirational. It is even claimed that she was the basis of Terry Sullivan's lyrics to a 1908 song, which would become the popular tongue twister, "She Sells Seashells."
No.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Now let's see if I can actually do this. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. So if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells shells. No, I got that wrong at the end.
All right, I'm gonna have a go. All right, because I've just brought it up because I'm like, I don't believe this. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. So if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. Oh, I hate that. Oh, that's awful.
Well, you can thank Mary for that one.
I mean, thanks for having an awesome life, and that is the coolest tidbit. That is like pub quiz trivia. Oh my god. Ugh.
She was also referenced in several historical novels, including The French Lieutenant's Woman in 1969 by John Fowle, who was critical of the fact that no British scientist had named a specimen after her in her lifetime.
True.
Yeah. The only person who did name a specimen after her during her lifetime was the Swiss-American naturalist Louis Agassiz, who visited her shop. In the early 1840s, he named 2 fossil fish species after her and another after her friend Elizabeth Philpott.
Nice.
He was grateful for the help the women had given him in examining the fossil fish specimens during his visit in 1834.
Oh, see, not all guys are horrible.
After her death, other species, I'm not even going to try and pronounce them, were named in her honour. In 2012, a new plesiosaur genus was named after her, and a species of ichthyosaur was named after her in 2015.
Aww.
And in 1999, on the 200th anniversary of her birth, an international meeting of historians, paleontologists, fossil collectors, and others interested in Mary's life was held in Lyme Regis. In 2005, the Natural History Museum added her, along with scientists such as Carl Linnaeus, Dorothea Bate, and William Smith, as one of the gallery characters to be used in display cases. And in March 2010, as part of a celebration of its 350th anniversary, the Royal Society invited a panel of experts to produce a list of the 10 British women who had most influenced the history of science, which included Mary.
That's awesome.
And that's Mary Anning, the kick-ass woman who helped invent paleontology and proved extinction existed and kicked the ass of any man scientifically.
That is awesome. That is... Oh, Mary.
Yeah. I finished this research and then I sort of sat back and went, I think I've fallen in love with Mary a little bit.
That's so cool. Oh, and it's weird because again, only sort of related, but a lot of my friends are now having children, so I'm becoming like an honorary uncle a few times. And so I'm really pushing on more women in STEM because it's such a big thing at the moment, trying to kind of close the gap a bit in STEM, all that sort of thing. And so it's stuff like this. It's like Mary Anning and Marie Curie and all these fantastic female scientists who got no representation during our life. And you're just like, oh, it's both good and bad, because it's a bad thing that they didn't get representation, but it's good that we're at least talking about it and that we're able to kind of give them the exposure now, kind of retroactively or posthumously.
Comparing those two, how many people have heard of Marie Curie? So many.
Yeah.
But how many people have heard of Mary Anning? Or if they've heard of her, can remember, oh yeah, she did that, didn't she?
Yeah.
But then did Marie Curie only get remembered because of her husband working alongside her?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying what she did wasn't good in itself,
died.
but
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
she's worthy of being remembered without her husband. But
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that played a part in why she's more well known than Mary.
Yeah, well, potentially. I mean, I don't know if the relationship thing necessarily works because, well, I mean, to be fair, I say everyone knows Elizabeth Fry. We don't, and it's still really not talked about, but I'm more conscious of it now, and yet she was married. Look at Oprah. She's married. No one ever talks about her husband, but she is married. And it's like, well, I mean, it's a different world and all that sort of thing, but it's a real shame that more people don't know about Mary Anning, myself included. I didn't know who on earth she was, but it's like, it's such a cool piece of history, and the fact that this one person kind of rippled out and have such massive effects later down the line. And she was one of 10, so it was only really a bit of fate and everything. And I'm kind of laughing to myself because we've been talking about kind of the religious aspect and the fact she was able to keep religion and everything. I just love the idea that God realised that she'd been instrumental in kind of getting rid of creationists, and that's why he tried to kill her with that lightning bolt. And he just missed. And she just went, it was like that internet meme where a guy sent his stepdaughter a photo of him after surgery saying, guess it's like, I lived, bitch. Just that. Just her God saying, or like the American Horror Story when it's like, surprise, bitch, but you thought you'd seen the last of me. Which I like to think of is that she was a paleontologist and kind of enemy of God. No, that's me. That's mean. She was super religious. She pushed for scientific understanding and managed to do it while retaining her faith, which is very admirable. And I think that's very cool.
She was able to look at the world and go, you know, I believe in God, I'm religious, but we don't have the answers to everything. There's more to God's creation that we don't yet understand, and science can help us do that. And she was able to marry those two together. And I know that in the end I listed, you know, her and these other people, their research would go on to found paleontology, but the fact that she was supplying so many of these people with fossils that got them recognition is like, were these other people really instrumental, or was it all her?
Yeah, exactly. Her legacy, in a way, is kind of providing it for other people. You know, it's a bit like the teachers who inspire other people. That's their legacy, and the fact they were able to teach and inspire someone else to go out in the field and do something that they hadn't done before. And, you know, that's awesome. In a way, she inspired Charles Dickens, and that's why I thought that little... not Charles Dickens, it was Charles Darwin. Yeah, that's where I got confused. I was like, oh, it's all come full circle. I'm like, nope, because there were two Charles D, and you just forgot what it was. But it's like, you know, she went on and, in a way, helped Charles Darwin become one of the most prominent kind of evolutionist in, you know, the modern world. And yeah, it's just, it's very nice. And I'm definitely going to be, again, with the Elizabeth Fry one, I'm basically making like a little list of like, cool, this has really piqued my interest, so I'm definitely going to like try this out. But yeah, no, this was awesome.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. The more I started reading about her, I was like, this just makes me think of Elizabeth Fry, and she's amazing. And I'm pretty sure Chris is gonna get a dig out of this one.
I was very happy to be getting this one. There's less. I mean, I joke and say child murders, but actually more kids died in this one than any for a while.
Yeah, technically more children died in this one than the axe murder episode.
Yeah. Think about that. You get to have the best of both worlds, listener. You get to have more infant death and more uplifting scientific discovery and badass women. So, depending on when this comes out, enjoy your winter holiday present. I was going to say Christmas, but a lot of people don't celebrate Christmas.
Will be coming out literally Christmas Eve.
Oh, yay!
Because it is literally a Christmas present.
Nice. That is awesome.
Well, if people enjoyed this as much as we did, where can they find you online and in other podcasts so they can get more of you in their ears?
When I'm not busy getting struck by lightning and becoming an infinitely better person, you can find me on Twitter at higher_boy. I am not that funny, nor am I that entertaining. I basically talk about stuff I like and basically kind of big up my friends and their other shows. But who knows? It's free. Go for it. It's the worst Twitter pitch. I am a co-host on a couple of other shows. One is Not by Nerd West, which is me and Emma Platt, and we get on and chat about all kinds of nerdy stuff. We haven't done an episode in a little while just because we've both been insanely busy over the summer, but we are hoping to get some episodes in time for the new year. I also do a show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast with two of my Canadian brothers. That is Brandon Shea Matala and Tom Caldwell, who both of you, along with Emma, who you can find on Twitter. And it's basically an Alfred Hitchcock review podcast that goes chronologically through his movies, and we discuss it. And we're also doing kind of offshoots like Bates Motel and the Psycho sequels and bits and pieces all over, and it's awesome. We have just got into The Man Who Knew Too Much, the 34 version, and it is one of my favourite ever films. So it's basically an hour and a half of me just kind of making incoherent sounds of pleasure. And then we have a special, funny enough you say this, but we have a special Christmas episode coming up. So if like you don't get on with your family at Christmas, or you just need a break, make sure you download our episode, because it is really funny. And I tried to wear a hat throughout the whole thing until I realised my earbuds won't fit. I tried wearing like my big cover ear headphones and a hat, and I realised this doesn't actually work. So the hat's there in spirit. So please enjoy. I also pop up on other shows like there is oh god, there's a Fringe one coming out in January, which I believe is called Following the Pattern, which covers episodes of the TV show Fringe, and I'm on a couple of episodes of that. And Smorgasbord, I was on a couple of months ago, and hopefully I'll be on it again very, very soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to you guys getting to the Psycho sequels, because I really enjoyed them.
I've genuinely never seen them, so I'll be going into this kind of completely blind. So I will.
I went into the whole thing completely blind. It was only a few years ago, but I'd never even seen Psycho. And then I sat and did all the films, and it's like, for what should normally be, like, you expect it's a franchise movie, it's going to be a bad sequel. Each of them is really well made, and they put a lot of thought and effort into how do we, like, make this a good film, B, a continuation of the other films, and also completely different from each other, so that for like a horror franchise, Psycho is so interesting and so good.
Ooh.
But yeah, I really hope you enjoy them.
I mean, I'm more intrigued now because I've heard kind of more mixed reception, but I'm totally down. Like I said, there's still a lot of Hitchcock I haven't seen, and this is a way of me really, we've explored a lot of the earlier ones, which, if you're still listening to this, listener, they're crap. Like, we listen to them so you don't have to watch them. We watch them so you don't have to. But yeah, no, they're interesting, and if nothing else, they provide kind of an interesting insight into someone who, how can I put it, was a very specific kind of crazy. And very talented, definitely one of our great kind of authors of cinema, but who was also kind of a very a little bit messed up, a little bit unusual, a bit of a the kindest way to say it would be eccentric, one of our most eccentric, prolific filmmakers. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with that, and it also means I get to kind of explore Canadian culture, because every so often they'll drop a reference and I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, okay, do you know what a butter tart is?
I'm guessing from the fact it has tart in the name, it's some sort of food and not, a buttered up lady looking for fun.
It's not like a dodgy internet ad. No. They were like, oh, you've never heard of butter tart? And I went, no. What is it? And it's basically, again, just before we wrap up the episode, just so you know, it's a tart like a jam tart, but it's filled with like an egg custard.
Oh, okay. And
they just eat, and then they I think they put sugar on it, and then you like caramelize it a bit. And I'm like, that sounds very weird, but also quite intriguing. So
I'm pretty sure I've seen similar in bakeries here in the UK, but they're definitely not called butter tarts.
It's weird. It's almost a bit like an egg custard kind of thing. Anyway, but that just basically means I'm going to have to go to Canada one day, partially to meet up with them, also just go around going like, what's this? What's this? Trying all that out.
Sounds like a good plan to me. Well, if people enjoyed this episode, we're online as well. We have a Twitter account, which is @eccentric_earth. Our Instagram has the same handle. We have a Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/eccentric_earth. If you want to write in with any suggestions for future episodes, or to give us any feedback, or to suggest some nice Canadian treats for Chris, our email address is eccentricearth@outlook.com. We're on all major podcast providers and YouTube, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more episodes. And if you like us, or even if you dislike us, please leave us a review. Some feedback is always welcome, as it helps us find new listeners. And we're also now part of the Brit Podscene Network, which has dozens of amazing British podcasts on it, so go check them out and see if you can find some great new shows to listen to. Well, I think that about wraps up the episode. Thank you for coming on, Chris. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I know this was a little bit last minute, but it was like, yeah, I've really enjoyed this, and thank you for not giving me something that will haunt my nightmares.
Good. I'm glad it's a pleasant change for you.
I'm just like, oh, thank you for the gift of sleep, Amy. Thank you. Because otherwise I'll still be there at 3 a.m, just like, is that a creek, or is that an axe murderer in the house? Or is it the Mothman?
I was going to say, it's Mothman coming to get you with an axe.
Yep, there goes the sleep. Right.
I've ruined you again, haven't I?
I don't think there's anything left to say, really. Right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and sleep well, Chris.
This has been Eccentric Earth, sponsored by My Nightmares. Bye.